Have you ever wondered why Satan was so eager to seize the body of Moses? It seems like an unanswerable question that has left many puzzled and curious, yet deep within the Bible lies the answer to this mystery. Moses, the legendary leader of the Israelites, who witnessed countless miracles from God and led his people through a long journey filled with challenges, became a symbol of sacrifice and absolute faith. However, right after his death, a strange event occurred. Satan appeared and fervently contested for his body. This story is not just about a supernatural dispute. It unveils profound mysteries linked to the eternal struggle between good and evil, between the most powerful forces in the heavenly realms. Why did Satan, the prince of darkness, the cunning enemy of humanity, demand Moses' body? What was the outcome of the intense confrontation between Satan and Michael, the archangel? Before diving into this supernatural dispute, let us first revisit the stature and significant role of Moses in biblical history. Moses was no ordinary man. He was the one who directly heard and saw God, the one who stood before the mysterious Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments and convey them to the Israelites. He was also the one who confronted Pharaoh, the most powerful king of his time, demanding he let the Israelites go from their harsh and oppressive conditions in Egypt. Moses was not merely a prophet or a leader, but a symbol of redemption. He paved the way for the Israelites from Egypt to the Promised Land, instilling in them faith and hope for freedom and liberation. However, this monumental journey was not always smooth. The Israelites frequently lost their way, succumbed to idolatry, and rebelled against God, and it was Moses who stood as an intercessor, praying for God's forgiveness on behalf of his people. But before Moses could step foot into the Promised Land, an event occurred that marked a turning point in his life. In a moment of impatience and anger, Moses struck a rock instead of speaking to it to bring forth water, as God had instructed. This small act led to a significant consequence. God decided that Moses would not enter the Promised Land that he had led his people to for 40 years. Moses died in the land of Moab, and according to Deuteronomy 34, God himself buried him in a secret place that no one knew. This is an unusual and remarkable event. Typically, the death of a great leader like Moses would have been marked by a grand funeral. But why did God personally bury Moses and keep his burial place a secret? What does this signify, and why did it become the center of a supernatural conflict? Satan appeared at that very moment with a special scheme. He wanted to claim the body of Moses, leading to a tense confrontation between him and Michael, the archangel. But intriguingly, Michael did not rebuke Satan on his own. Instead, he said, "The Lord rebuke you." This demonstrates that true power does not lie with Michael, despite him being one of the most powerful angels, but with God. But why did Satan want to seize the body of Moses? Was it just an ordinary corpse? The answer is not simple. One possible reason is that Satan wanted to prevent the resurrection of Moses or to stop him from entering heaven. As we know, Moses appeared on the Mount of Transfiguration alongside Elijah and Jesus, indicating that he had been granted a special favor by God. Satan, the enemy of life and redemption, may have attempted to thwart this by claiming Moses' body. Moreover, Satan might have wanted to use Moses' body as a tool to sow idolatry. Recall the incident of the golden calf when the Israelites were easily tempted to worship material symbols instead of God. Satan may have planned to use Moses' body as an icon to lead the Israelites astray into false worship. This dispute is not merely about seizing a body. It is a struggle between light and darkness, between the power of God and the cunning schemes of the enemy. Let us continue to explore the story to discover the profound meaning of this confrontation and the important lessons it imparts. To better understand why Satan was so eager for the body of Moses, we need to re-examine Moses' extraordinary role in biblical history. Moses was not only the leader of the Israelites, but also a bridge between God and his people. His life witnessed many of God's miraculous works, from parting the Red Sea to allow the Israelites to escape the Egyptians' pursuit to receiving the 10 Commandments from God's hand on Mount Sinai. He dedicated his life to leading his people from Egypt to the Promised Land. Yet, that great journey was not always serene. The Israelites frequently lost faith, succumbed to temptation, and engaged in idol worship, rebelling against God. Moses, as a leader and mediator, consistently prayed and stood up to defend his people before God's wrath. Under Moses' guidance, the Israelites not only experienced extraordinary miracles, but also strengthened their faith in God and his deliverance. However, before Moses could complete his mission and step foot into the Promised Land, he made a significant mistake. When the Israelites were thirsty, God instructed Moses to speak to the rock for water to flow, but in a moment of anger, Moses struck the rock. This act of disobedience led God to decide that Moses would not enter the Promised Land. It was a sorrowful end to Moses' long and arduous journey, but it also affirmed that even the greatest leaders could face consequences if they failed to heed God's commands. Moses died in the land of Moab, near the border of the Promised Land. And most intriguingly, God himself buried him. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 34, it is written, God buried him in a place that no one knows. This raises the question of why a prominent figure like Moses did not have a solemn funeral and why his burial site was kept a secret. The answer to this mystery begins to unfold when Satan appears with the intention of seizing Moses' body. According to the book of Jude, verse 9, Michael, the archangel, intervened to protect Moses' body from Satan. The confrontation between Michael and Satan was an unprecedented battle in the heavenly realms, yet it is noteworthy that Michael did not rebuke Satan on his own, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." This detail carries significant meaning. It reveals that Michael, even as one of the mightiest angels, still relies on God's power to overcome Satan. True power does not reside with Michael, but in God's hands. This also serves as a reminder that in every conflict, no matter how great our strength or authority, the ultimate power always belongs to God. But why did Satan want Moses' body? Was it merely an ordinary corpse? One reason scholars propose is that Satan sought to prevent Moses' resurrection. As mentioned in the Bible, Moses appeared on the Mount of Transfiguration alongside Elijah and Jesus, showing that he had been granted special grace by God. Satan, in his hostile and cunning nature, might have foreseen that God would resurrect Moses or grant him ascension. If Satan could seize Moses' body, he could prevent this, blocking Moses from receiving God's grace. However, the second reason may be more profound. Satan, cunning and ever-destructive, may have intended to use Moses' body to instigate idolatry among the Israelites. Recall the golden calf incident, a clear testament to the Israelites' weakness in maintaining their faith. As soon as Moses ascended Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments, the Israelites, in their impatience, created a golden calf and worshipped it. This shows that even after witnessing God's miracles, they were easily tempted by material symbols. Satan understood this human weakness. If he could seize Moses' body, he could transform Moses into an object of worship for the Israelites. Moses, revered and honored by the people, could easily become an object of veneration if his body were exploited. This would deal a major blow to the faith of the Israelites, drawing them away from God and leading them down the path of idolatry. Therefore, God himself buried Moses in a secret place, protecting him from Satan's schemes. This act was not only a protection for Moses, but also a safeguard for the Israelites against falling into false worship. The dispute over Moses' body between Michael and Satan was not merely a supernatural battle. It held profound meaning about power and faith. As mentioned, when Michael intervened to protect Moses' body, he did not rebuke Satan himself. Instead, he said, "The Lord rebuke you." This reflects not only Michael's humility before God's supreme power, but also affirms an important truth. Only God has the right to judge and rebuke. Even Satan, the most formidable enemy, Michael, despite being a powerful archangel, understood that true strength comes not from oneself, but from absolute submission to God. His action was a clear demonstration of humility and divine power. Though one of the most powerful angels, he recognized that his strength was merely an instrument of God, and all judgment ultimately belongs to him. So why did Michael choose to rebuke Satan in God's name rather than confronting him directly? The reason lies in the difference between God's power and the strength of any creature, even angels. Michael understood that this battle was not just about Moses' body, but also about God's supreme authority over all beings. Satan, who had once rebelled against God and was cast out of heaven, continuously sought to oppose God's plans. Although he may be powerful, his strength pales in comparison to the power of the Almighty. This confrontation is a testament to the triumph of light over darkness, of faith over Satan's dark schemes. Satan may have arrived with cunning plans, but Michael, through obedience and absolute loyalty, did not allow him to carry out any of his schemes. Despite his superior strength, Michael never forgot that he was merely an executor of God's will, and he understood that all conflicts ultimately belong to God. Satan's desire to seize Moses' body was not merely an act of possession. As the enemy of all life and redemption, his schemes always run deeper than what appears on the surface. One reason Satan wanted Moses' body was to prevent his resurrection or ascension. As mentioned, Moses was chosen specially by God, and his resurrection would serve as a testament to his unwavering faithfulness and loyalty to God. Satan, always seeking to thwart God's plans, may have anticipated that God would grant Moses a special grace after death, similar to Elijah or Enoch. If Satan could seize Moses' body, he could hope to disrupt this plan, preventing Moses from receiving the blessings of resurrection or ascension. In Satan's mind, controlling Moses' body would mean keeping him in the earthly realm, barring him from partaking in God's divine plan. But that's not all. Satan is also known as the accuser, the one who constantly seeks to accuse and condemn humanity before God. In Moses' life, despite being a great and loyal leader, he still made mistakes. Satan may have planned to use these mistakes to accuse Moses, particularly his act of killing an Egyptian and striking the rock instead of following God's command. By using Moses' body as evidence of disobedience, Satan hoped to condemn him, diminishing his worth and standing before God and the Israelites. Additionally, Satan may have intended to transform Moses' body into an idol for the Israelites to worship. Reflecting on the golden calf incident, we see that the Israelites were easily tempted into worshiping material symbols. Satan understood this human weakness well, and by claiming Moses' body, he could transform Moses into a symbol of worship, drawing the Israelites into idolatry. However cunning and determined Satan may be, ultimately, only God holds supreme power. The dispute between Michael and Satan shows that God's power surpasses all of the enemy's schemes. Even when Satan attempted to seize Moses' body to undermine God's plan, he failed. Michael, in his role, fulfilled his duty by following God's command and protecting Moses' body from Satan. God's act of personally burying Moses in a secret place also demonstrates his infinite wisdom. He understood that Moses' body could become a snare for the Israelites if they overly revered him and fell into idolatry. Thus, he concealed Moses' resting place, not only to protect Moses, but also to shield the Israelites from Satan's schemes. This dispute also exemplifies how God always protects those he has chosen, both in life and after death. God's plan always prevails over opposition, and no force, whether Satan or other dark forces, can destroy his plan. The story of the dispute over Moses' body between Michael and Satan is not just a supernatural event, but also offers valuable lessons for us today. First, it reminds us of the importance of proper worship. We must always uphold our faith and loyalty to God, steering clear of any form of idolatry or material symbols that Satan may use to deceive us. Second, this story is a reminder of God's grace and mercy. Though Moses made mistakes, God still granted him protection and grace. This demonstrates that no matter how many failures we face, God is always ready to welcome us back with open arms. Finally, the story is a testament to the power of faith. Satan may be cunning and relentless in his attacks, but through obedience and faith in God, we can withstand all of his temptations and schemes. God is always our protector and guide, and only he has the final say. The story of the dispute between the archangel Michael and Satan over Moses' body is not merely a supernatural event in biblical history, but also a testament to God's supreme power and the protection he grants to the faithful. Through this story, we realize that despite Satan's cunning and deviousness, God's plan always prevails. Proper worship, God's grace, and steadfast faith enable us to overcome any challenges and stand strong against the enemy's schemes. One of the most important aspects of this story is the lesson of humility from Michael, the archangel. Though he possesses extraordinary strength, Michael chose not to rebuke Satan by his own power. Instead of relying on his own abilities, he reminded Satan, "The Lord rebuke you." This demonstrates that, although Michael is one of the most powerful angels, he is entirely dependent on God in his confrontation with humanity's greatest foe. Michael did not see himself as the source of power, understanding that all strength comes from God. Michael's humility is the key to confronting Satan, for in the spiritual realm, no power is greater than the Creator's authority. God's power far exceeds the abilities of any created being, including angels and demons. This is a valuable lesson for us in life. No matter how talented or powerful we may be, we still need to be humble and rely on God's guidance. Satan, with his cunning and arrogant nature, constantly seeks to assert his power to overthrow God's plan. However, it was Michael's humility that caused Satan to fail. This underscores that true power does not lie in imposing oneself or displaying strength, but in submission and obedience to God. The battle between Michael and Satan was not merely a clash of two powerful forces, but a clear testament to the supremacy of the divine power that God holds. This story shows that even the most powerful beings, such as angels, are merely instruments of God. Michael could have confronted Satan on his own, but he chose to rely on God's supreme power, knowing that no strength is greater than his. This is a profound lesson in placing absolute trust in God and understanding that only He has the authority to judge and protect us from the enemy's schemes. One of the most prominent messages of Moses' story is the lesson of God's boundless grace. Although Moses was a great leader, he was not perfect. As mentioned, he made mistakes in his life, such as killing an Egyptian in a fit of rage or striking the rock instead of speaking to it as God commanded. These mistakes prevented Moses from entering the promised land, the land he had dedicated his life to leading the Israelites toward. However, despite his shortcomings, God still granted Moses special grace. When Moses died, God himself buried him in a secret place. This act shows that although Moses was imperfect, God still loved and protected him. God's grace is immeasurable and transcends all human limitations. This also reminds us that God does not abandon us, no matter how great our mistakes. He is always willing to forgive and give us opportunities to make amends. Moses' life is a testament to God's infinite mercy. Although he was not allowed to set foot in the promised land, he was still buried by God himself and received protection even after death. This demonstrates that, no matter what happens in life, God always cares for and protects those who are faithful to him. We can learn that God's grace is not only for the perfect. Every person, whether a great leader or an ordinary individual, can make mistakes. But more importantly, God always opens his arms to welcome us back, as long as we continue to trust in him and remain faithful to the path he has set for us. The story of the dispute over Moses' body also offers a profound lesson about the battle against temptation and Satan's schemes. Throughout history, Satan has been the cunning adversary, always seeking to tempt and undermine humanity's faith. He not only wanted to claim Moses' body, but had a deeper goal of drawing the Israelites away from faith and into idolatry. Satan is adept at exploiting human weaknesses. The Israelites frequently succumbed to false worship, as seen in the incident of the golden calf in the desert. Satan understood that people often have a tendency to seek physical symbols of worship rather than maintain their loyalty to the invisible God. Thus, he may have planned to turn Moses' body into an object of worship, leading the Israelites astray. However, Michael, following God's will, protected Moses, and Satan could not succeed in his scheme. This reminds us that while Satan always seeks to tempt us, by trusting in God, we can overcome any challenge. In modern life, Satan still operates, lurking in various forms, through wealth, power, careers, and other material temptations. He constantly tries to draw people away from the right path and into false worship. The battle against temptation is not always easy. But the story of Michael and Satan is a powerful testament that faith in God is the strongest weapon against any scheme of the enemy. We must always remember that, no matter how cunning Satan may be, God is always on the side of the faithful and will protect us from every trial. The dispute over Moses' body between Archangel Michael and Satan is not only a strange event in the Bible, but also brings valuable lessons about faith, worship, and the battle between good and evil. Through this story, we realize that God always protects those he has chosen, both in life and after death. Satan may be cunning and full of schemes, but ultimately, God's plan always prevails. By concealing Moses' burial place and assigning Michael to protect him, God thwarted all of Satan's plans to use Moses' body to corrupt the Israelites. The story also reminds us of the importance of proper worship. We must not let material symbols or worldly temptations distort our faith. True worship belongs to God alone, and everything else is fleeting. The battle between Michael and Satan also emphasizes that true power comes from God, and every victory is due to his authority. Finally, this story serves as a reminder of God's grace. Although Moses made mistakes, God still granted him protection and grace. God's grace is always available to us, no matter how many failures we have experienced. The key is to remain steadfast in our faith and loyalty to God, for only He has the power to guide us through all challenges and bring us to eternal life. Make sure you don't miss the next stories on this journey, as each page of the Bible is filled with miracles, battles of faith, and incredible challenges. Follow the channel to continue exploring the wonders the Bible offers, and together we will delve deeper into the divine world full of God's power. Be sure not to miss the upcoming stories on this journey, where each page of the Bible reveals miracles, battles of faith, and incredible challenges. If you want to learn more about God's power and other supernatural stories, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to avoid missing any episodes. Thank you for joining us on this story. Don't forget to share and leave your thoughts in the comments below. We look forward to hearing from you and continuing to explore the miracles the Bible offers together. See you in the next story, where we will continue the journey to discover the divine power and great events that have changed the world forever.